शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो स्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 This fourth mantra, which is deeply connected and related to the asana which we practiced yesterday evening, Vṛkṣāsana. Because this idea of the tree, the body as the tree, and I am that consciousness which inspires, which animates this body, which is a witness of this body, and when it engages, it inspires all the activities, thoughts and ideas, whatever action takes place on the physical, which means on the bodily, as well as the verbal, on the level of words, on the verbal, and psychological, mental level, because actions can occur on all these three levels. I am the one that inspires this action on all these three levels. I'm not the instrument and I'm not the action, but I am a witness of these activities, and I am the one that inspires those actions in those instruments. I am the one which uses the instrument of the body, the instrument of the senses, which includes the faculty of speech, and the instrument, the inner instrument as they are referred to in the yoga philosophy, antahkarana, the inner instruments, this continuous stream of thought, the intellect through which we understand, analyze, and understand things, and this instrument of this limited sense of I, which, even though completely imagined, gives us an inner center from which then our actions, thoughts, ideas can arise, even though it is imagined. And similarly, this faculty of the memories, all I'm the one that is using it. And that is the idea of Vṛkṣāsana as well. Because what is asana? I repeatedly keep on pointing this out, because as asana practitioners, even I need to remind myself again and again what asana really is. And the definition, the most beautiful definition provided of asana is by Guru Gorakshanatha, one of the first masters of the Hatha Yoga tradition in the 10th century, who says that asana is that which enables us to be seated within our essential nature. That is his definition. Asanamiti swaswarupe, my essential nature. Swaswarupe samasannata, to be able to settle, something that enables me to settle down in my essential nature. Such a physical state of the body is called asana. And that is why not only standing postures, otherwise a very logical question, okay, Padmasana is an asana, fine, because it's a sitting posture. But how is Śirshasana an asana? How is Tadasana an asana? How is Trikonasana an asana? How are all the standing postures, inversions, backbends, how are they asanas? They should be, rather in Sanskrit, technically, grammatically speaking, they should be called Vyayama. Because Vyayama means to stretch. Ayama means to stretch. And the word, for example, for the next limb is Pranayama. Prana, Ayama, the stretching of the prana. Then why should not this limb be called Dehayama? The stretching of the body. Simply call it that. Why the word asana, which is not even universally applicable? Because there are only a few sitting postures. The rest are standing or hanging or whatever postures, So why are they called asana? This question should arise, and we should ask our teachers that you are teaching me Śirshasana. What kind of asana is this? I'm not sitting in Śirshasana. Then it will be his duty to explain that why these postures, if we can call them postures at all, why are they called asanas? Because they enable us to sit within our essential nature. Each one of them enables us to bring back our awareness, our attention, which is wandering in this world, back into the body and be with ourselves. One cannot do an asana properly unless one is completely with oneself, with the body at least, because that is what is the self for us for the time being. And also the word self has been regularly applied in the Upanishads. The word Atman, which has such a deep meaning, the same word is also applied for the physical body. The physical body is also part of that Atman, part of that self. Even though it is a perishable aspect of the self, it is not the imperishable aspect of the self, it is the perishable aspect of the self. But still, it is part of that self. And as a first step of coming within ourselves from outside, this is, you can call it, what is the English word for Schwelle? Türschwelle. No.
When you enter the door, there is something.
Threshold. Yes, threshold. हिंदी में तो देहरी बोलते हैं ना, दहली बोलते हैं, हिंदी में दहली बोलते हैं. In Hindi, the word is Dehli.
Like Delhi?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, yes. It's very similar to that. But it's Dehali. And that in Hindi is Dilli. So I don't know from where that word comes. No idea. Because the Sanskrit name of Delhi is Indraprastha.
Yeah.
So that's the Sanskrit name. But I don't know from where. It's an interesting question, in fact. Should find an answer to that. Don't even know the meaning of the name of the capital of this country. What a shame. Okay. Huh? Yeah. But that is only the way you write it in English. In Hindi, we write Dilli. So, I don't know, whatever. Okay, coming back to our Vṛkṣāsana. So, to be in the Vṛkṣāsana means to be seated within the body, with this awareness. If while we practice that asana and when we have mastered it, in fact, if you look, Vṛkṣāsana is one of the very favorite postures of the ancient masters. If you look, there are several beautiful paintings of ancient masters standing in Vṛkṣāsana. And for us, it is even 12 minutes is nearly impossible. We saw it yesterday, how difficult it was, even just for a few minutes. But they practice to stand in it for months, days, months, hours, days, months together. It was one of the favorite asanas. And the reason it was favorite, because it gave them, by standing in that posture for a very, very long time, that is how you see them even performing tapasya, standing under a tree in Vṛkṣāsana, just on one leg, So, why is this such an important posture? Because if it is done with awareness, it gives us this understanding that this body is like a tree on which I live as a bird. When the tree falls, does the bird fall with the tree? Anybody else sitting on the tree, if the tree falls, they will also fall. But a bird never falls. A bird, the moment the tree falls down, the bird will take off and find another tree for itself. This idea is this idea of, which is again in the Upanishads, when the Upanishads speak of the bird which lives on a tree, when they speak of the self, this consciousness within, as the golden bird, Suparna, the word that is often used in the Upanishads is Suparna, the golden bird. And the gold, what does gold mean? Gold stands for that radiance, for that glittering, for that splendor, for that. Because this consciousness, the more we meditate on it, the more we try to understand it, we realize that it is nothing but like an internal light. There is this physical light out there, and there is this internal light of consciousness, in the light of which we experience everything. And it is the presence of both lights the presence of the physical light, as well as this internal light of consciousness, that we can experience, see, perceive this world out there. So, and interestingly, this is something that the Vedic masters realized and modern thinkers realize, that the better we understand light, the better we understand consciousness. Even though understanding doesn't mean that they cease being a mystery. The same thing was said by Albert Einstein when he said that everyone today seems to claim that they understand light, but no one really does. And those who think that they have understood it, they are just lying. They don't know what light it is. Such a mysterious thing, even the physical light. And then how more mysterious is this inner light of consciousness. And it is the awareness of this that is the goal of the Upanishadic teachings, the goal of yoga. So the steps that we were discussing in this mantra, when he spoke about, the first step, was breaking identification. The first step was breaking identification with the physical as well as the subtle body. The second step was breaking identification with the accumulated labels. The third step was about forgiveness, the way I explained it, urdhva pavitraha, that section of the mantra. And the fourth step, which we discussed in our previous session, was awareness of oneness with the universe, in which he stated that vajiniva swamritam asmi, that I am that beautiful, immortal essence, which is the same as the essence present within the sun as the source of life and light on this planet. I am the same. So that oneness with the universe, this sense of being deeply connected with the universe around us, this was the fourth step, which we had discussed in our previous session. Now in the next section of the mantra, the fifth step to find peace within is the awareness of inner wealth. We might be or might be not. We might be poor from certain external definitions, either because we don't have gold or because we don't have a lot of fame, or poverties can be of different kinds. Poverty of wealth, poverty of fame, poverty of knowledge. They're different. Sometimes people are extremely wealthy, but their understanding is really very little. They're completely poor in their understanding. Some extremely scholarly people, they have no money at all. In fact, in India, we have a saying that if you worship Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, too much, Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, becomes angry with you. And if you worship the goddess of wealth too much, which is Lakshmi, then the goddess of knowledge becomes angry with you. So you cannot please both. Either someone is very rich, but then he knows very little, or someone is very, very scholarly, but then they have no wealth at all. They are extremely poor. Those professors with their these sticking out. And so everybody in this world seems to be poor on some level. But then comes this realization that deep within there is hidden this treasure of immense wealth, which is buried within everybody, within every human being, within every living being, as long as they become aware of it. If they are not, then the example that the Upanishadic masters give is that like a very poor man who is sleeping on his bed, not knowing that beneath in the ground his forefathers have lost a great amount of treasure, but there is treasure buried under his bed in his house, and yet he is suffering, he is sad, he feels weak, he feels poor, he feels powerless. So similarly, like the suffering of such a person who is sleeping on top of a buried treasure is the grief and suffering of us. That is what the Upanishadic masters say. So this idea of inner wealth, which is also deeply related to the idea of ananda. Because ananda, which we so easily translate today into English as bliss, it doesn't really translate as bliss. It simply means complete from all sides, prosperity. To be prosperous from all sides, which means the absence of lacking anything. There is no sense of lacking. There is one doesn't feel any emptiness which needs to be filled up by something external. So that is what is ananda, that is what is called inner prosperity, that is what the masters call the great treasure. Because that is what then is capable of giving deep inner peace. So this is the next step in which we find him becoming aware of the treasure that is buried within himself. I am a shining treasure. This sentence, I've just translated it in one way, but let us understand it a little bit in more detail, because it's an interesting sentence. Draviṇaṁ savarcasam. That is the Sanskrit. Draviṇaṁ and savarcasam. Draviṇaṁ is the Sanskrit word for wealth. There are many, many words in Sanskrit for wealth. And this is a very interesting word. Draviṇa can mean wealth. Draviṇa can also mean essence. Draviṇa can also mean power, which shows that even power is a form of wealth. Because everything that one has to work hard or strive for is a kind of wealth in Sanskrit language. Because the Sanskrit word, one of the Sanskrit words for wealth is that which you strive for. And that is why this word, the Sanskrit words for wealth, are used very loosely for various, even knowledge is a kind of wealth, and fame is a kind of wealth, power is a kind of wealth, all these different kinds of wealth. In Sanskrit, one can do that. Maybe in English it sounds a little bit strange, when we use the word wealth for all these things. But in Sanskrit, it is a very common thing to do so. The word Draviṇa itself is a beautiful word because it makes us aware of two things. First of all, Draviṇa means that which will inevitably go away. It's a beautiful idea, that wealth has come to you, fine, but remember it is Draviṇa. Like it left someone else and came to you, in the same way, at some point, whatever the reason will be, it will have to go to someone else. Either when we spend it, or either we lose it. And if both don't happen, then at death, it has to go to someone else anyway. So inevitably, no one can own wealth forever. And that is the meaning of the word Draviṇa. it has this idea of impermanence. Even though it's a word for wealth, it has this idea of impermanence in it. And that also So it's this word that has been used here for treasure. And the masters, they usually, because as I said that there are several types of wealths, the masters have created this distinction between worldly wealth, and radiant wealth. Manusha vitta, which means human wealth, which we understand as wealth, and daiva vitta, divine wealth. Since the Sanskrit word daiva is related to light, the root for light, we can translate it as radiant wealth. And radiant wealth is knowledge. So worldly wealth, human wealth, is what we understand by wealth in English language, gems, gold, and all these things. And radiant wealth is the wealth of light, the wealth of knowledge. So there are these two forms of wealth. In fact, before the Upanishads, in the Aranyaka texts, there are several meditative techniques which have been mentioned and which are like preparations and build up the human consciousness to this experience. One of these meditation techniques, and the purpose of each technique is in fact to draw back the attention from the external world into the internal world. That is always the purpose of all the meditative techniques. So those who are deeply attached to their wealth, a meditative technique that the masters have given to them is that meditate upon your eyes as human wealth. Because they are all the time meditating on external wealth. They are all the time thinking about their money, about their gold, about their... Then what the masters say, meditate on your eyes, because ultimately it is your eyes that were the source of that wealth. It is by searching with the help of your eyes. How would someone accumulate gold, gems, all kinds of wealth? Someone has to search for it. Someone has to look for it. And only when someone looks for it, then one finds it, one gets it. So meditate on your eye as the source of your physical wealth. And then the next step of this meditation is meditate on your ears as the source of the radiant wealth. You see how they are taking it further, Now, meditate on your eyes first of all. So with this technique, the attention goes away from the accumulated wealth and we come back to something within ourselves that is the source of that wealth within ourselves, which we have even... Sometimes in the blind pursuit of wealth, we disregard all these faculties that are given to us, without which we cannot accumulate that wealth, and we only realize their importance when we start losing them. As long as everything functions perfectly, we don't realize their importance. We don't really. But when they stop functioning properly, that is when we start realizing their importance. And that is why, isn't it that we disregard our health so much, sometimes in the blind pursuit of wealth, that we end up a sick person, a very rich but sick person? This is what happens. So, it's a very simple and basic technique, yet the masters have given it. And then the next step is to meditate on one's ears as the source of radiant wealth. Listen carefully, knowledge comes to us. One just has to listen. I see it. if we are just, even in our asana classes, which is very active, where we have to see, and yet, even despite seeing others, sometimes we don't realize because we were not listening carefully. Knowledge, wisdom comes to us through our ears. This doesn't mean that only through it, but it plays a major role in accumulating knowledge. And that's why meditate on your ears as the source of radiant wealth. So this kind of meditative techniques can be found. And this idea of importance of listening, if we would just listen, and this faculty has to be developed. It has to be with some people. Some people are more listening oriented, some people are more vision oriented, which means that some people learn better when they see something, and some people learn better when they hear. But ultimately, even those people who are vision oriented, by training, they can train their capacity to listen and learn by listening, because some of the deepest abstract concepts and ideas are very, very difficult to present in form. Yet, yes, it is a great challenge, and one should do everything to overcome such a challenge. But if not, then what? And that is why this, particularly I think in the field of yoga, developing this capacity to listen what the teacher is saying, even during the yoga class, is very important. I mean, the other day when we had that somehow a little bit chaotic class, it was a wonderful class, but simply because not everybody was listening, so it became very chaotic. And Mataji had to shout, but why was she shouting? Because if we start talking and if we are not focused, if we are not listening, then injuries will happen. And I was feeling frightened myself, because if everybody is talking, everybody else is talking, we cannot focus ourselves on the posture, and then we might do something wrong which will lead to injury. So, silent and listening. This faculty has to be developed. There is no other way around. So that's why I'm pointing this out. It came to me on that day to my mind that I should speak about this, because these Upanishads themselves, one of the words for the Upanishads is Shruti, the wisdom that is received by listening. Shruti, they are referred to as Shruti. With deep respect, we refer to them as Shruti, the wisdom that is received through listening. And in ancient India, the word for a great scholar was not someone who has read a lot. Today, the definition of a great scholar is someone who has read a lot. That's the definition of a great scholar. Somebody who has read a lot of books. The definition of a great scholar in ancient India, in Sanskrit language, was Bahushruta. Bahushruta means someone who has heard a lot. Someone who has met with several masters, has received living wisdom from them. And how would that happen? By listening. So the definition, the word, the very Sanskrit word for a great scholar is either the famous word also in Hindi language, Vidwan, which in fact means someone who has had an experience, or Bahushruta, which means someone who has heard a lot. So listening, particularly on the path of yoga, listening is very important. And that is why this meditation on the ears as the source of radiant wealth. See? So first of all, our attachment in external wealth is reduced by meditating on the inner source of that wealth, which is the eyes. And then from there the meditation is shifted on the ears as the source of radiant wealth. And that is when the pursuit of radiant wealth which is nothing but wisdom, understanding, knowledge about our own self, about this inner light of consciousness and its mysterious nature. So all these ideas are hidden in the word Draviṇaṁ, which is the Sanskrit word for wealth. So I am that, and then the next word, Draviṇaṁ savarcasam. But I am not this kind of wealth, because as I said, the word Draviṇa means that which goes away, or that which goes from person to person. Dravati gacchati, dravati means to go from person to person. But I am not that kind of wealth. I'm a very different kind of wealth. That is what he then points out by using the adjective savarcasam. Varchas, that Sanskrit word varchas, means energy, splendor, luster. It is the word for the illuminating power of the sun, of the lightening, of the fire. We use the word varchas for that. So it means splendor. So I am the wealth which is filled with light. This is what it means, which means I am that wealth which is filled with light. This is one possible way of translating. Varchas can also mean strength, power, energy. So one can also translate this as, which I have not translated it like this, but it can be translated as that I am a treasure of inner strength. Then it will be a message against our weakness when we feel like, in the first translation, it's a message against our poverty, that even if we feel poor externally, this poverty is only external. Deep within ourselves, we are extremely rich, because this treasure of light is buried deep within ourselves. Or when we feel powerless, then this mantra gives us the awareness that I am a treasure of tremendous inner strength. They say, the yogic texts say, Nasti yoga samam balam. There is no bala, there is no strength equal to yoga. From where does the strength of yoga come? It comes from within. Yoga just helps like a lens, which directs the energy of the sun and focuses it on one point. If you put a paper just like this in the sun, it won't burn. But then when you direct the energy, when you focus it, when you focus that heat on one single point, a miracle happens. And the paper is lit, it's on fire. By the same rays, what happened? Just they were focused. Yoga is a source of strength because it focuses our energy. That's all. The energy is there, but it is lost. It is scattered, not even lost, but it is scattered. The practice of yoga gives it a direction. Otherwise, it's just flowing like a river. People can drink from it, but not the kind of use that is there when you create a dam and you channelize it into a channel, into a canal. Call it channel or canal? Canal, yeah, canal. Because there is this canal here just below Rishikesh. You channelize it into a canal, then you can use it to run the turbines and electricity is produced. When it is directed, focused, then water, which was only useful for irrigation and drinking, becomes even more useful. The same thing happens. What is abhyasa and vairagya? Why does Patanjali, in the beginning of the Yoga Sutras, when he says, how does one acquire yoga? He gives by the two legs or the two wings of practice and detachment. Practice, detachment. Why these two? Detachment blocks the natural flow and practice directs it. If we don't block the natural flow, we have no water in our practice. So some level of detachment, you have no water for the canal. So you have to, some detachment has to be practiced, and then once you block the natural flow, then it has to be given an outlet. Otherwise it will break the dam. That is what so many people do. They come to the spiritual life, they start practicing brahmacharya, celibacy, etc. For a while it works wonderfully, and then it bursts because there is no proper outlet. It's a very natural thing to happen. It happens in the nature, it happens within. But if there is an outlet, a very controlled outlet, a focused outlet, then it can give rise to wonders. And that is what the idea that Patanjali gives, and he compares in fact citta, the inner mind, as a river which flows like a river. Abhyasa, vairagya, detachment, blocks the downward flow, and abhyasa, practice, lifts it upward. But isn't it? You see, when you pump water up, you need to have a valve so that the water doesn't fall back. Otherwise, every time you pump up, it will fall back. You'll just be, even in the hand pump, there is this valve. So you pump up water and then the valve closes so that it doesn't fall back. Otherwise, it will fall back. It will not flow out. So the same principle applies in abhyasa and vairagya. Vairagya is that valve which blocks it from falling back, and abhyasa is what lifts it up. So abhyasa and vairagya, these two things are extremely essential because they give that focus. And that is why the idea that the yogic masters give is that we are a source of tremendous energy. We are a great powerhouse of energy. And yet, what we just need to do is to direct it. So, the second meaning of this could be, the first meaning, as I translated it, that I'm a treasure of inner, of splendor, of radiance. And the second meaning would be, I'm a treasure of inner strength. That can also be. And particularly, I think, as yoga practitioners, this meaning would be more interesting to us because we work a lot with strength, we require a lot of strength, and the realization that this strength, physical as well as psychological strength, is already there within ourselves but just needs to be focused. This part of the mantra makes us aware of it. Some commentators also, because you see, he just uses the word radiant wealth. That's all. Shining treasure. Draviṇaṁ is the word for treasure. Savarcasam means shining. However, I am a shining treasure. This I am, this part of the sentence, I have added as a translator. It's not in the Sanskrit. Because in English, I have to complete the sentence. I cannot just leave it a treasure of radiance, a radiant treasure, a shining treasure. What? That. In English, we have to. So according to one group of commentators, it is, I am a shining treasure. According to another group of Sanskrit ancient commentators, it can be that I have acquired a shining treasure. This is another way, in the form of insight into the self, into that wisdom, that direct experiential wisdom of consciousness. That is what I have acquired. I have acquired an understanding of the true nature of the self. So in that case, the radiant treasure will stand for the knowledge of the self, which second-hand knowledge we find in the Upanishads, in the yogic teachings, and the ultimate goal is to acquire it within ourselves. So with this, the fifth step concludes. Now comes the sixth step, which is will be discussed in the next part of the mantra, which we will talk about in our next section. Sumedhā amritokshitaha, this one, which is about the awareness of the essence of everything. You know, in Jainism and in Buddhism and in Hinduism, in all the three ancient traditions of India, this idea of sārvajña, omniscience, is an important idea. For example, the Buddha at the moment of enlightenment, it is said that he acquired omniscience. Everything became clear to him. The same thing the Jaina traditions claim for their Jaina masters, Tirthankaras such as Mahavira, that at the moment of enlightenment they became sārvajña, they became omniscient. In the understanding of Vedanta, omniscience has a very specific understanding. Omniscience doesn't mean to know everything as an individual appearance, but to know everything by knowing its single essence. So the most typical example that the Vedantic masters, if you have understood a piece of gold, then you have understood all the jewels and everything that is made out of gold. Those are just momentary appearances. Gold has been molded into that form. The form is there for a while, and then again it will cease to exist. So knowing all those individual forms is not important. What is important is to know the essence. So if a small little lump of gold has been understood, then everything made out of gold will be understood. If a small little lump of clay is understood, then all the pots or pottery made out of clay is understood, because we have understood the essence. So the same thing, the father, Uddalaka, asks his son, his son, he was, for 12 years, he went to study the Vedas, and when he came back, he was very filled with ego and pride that I've studied all the Vedas and I'm now a great scholar. So he comes back and his father realizes, oh my God, my son went a humble child and he has come back with so much pride. There is something wrong with him and let me fix it. So then what he says is that, my son, has your master taught you that knowing which one knows everything? He says, no, he didn't teach me anything like that. Then the moment when his father wanted to say, okay, then go back and learn properly, study properly from him, he fears that he will send me back. So then he says that, I'm sure he didn't know it, because I was his most beloved student. If he would have known it, then he would have told me, which means don't send me back to him. And then his father says that, okay, if you don't want to go back, then let me teach you that essence. And that is when the most beautiful part of Chandogya Upanishad, one of the ninth Upanishad, comes, in which the teachings of Tattvamasi, these famous teachings that you are that, all that occurs. And he starts with this, that my beloved son, isn't it that when you have seen a lump of clay, you can understand everything that is made out of clay, because those forms, they are just momentary appearances. My son, when you have seen a lump of gold, isn't it that you have understood everything? So in this way, try to find the very source, the very origin, the very foundation of everything. Know that, search after that, question after that, inquire into that. If you understand that, then you have understood everything. So, sārvajña, omniscience, this idea of understanding everything, is understood in Vedanta in this sense, that to understand, to become aware of the source, the origin, the foundation of everything. So, when sage Triśaṅku, he says that I am the one with the beautiful intellect, with the beautiful understanding. We use the word intelligence, but later I realized that it should be better. The better translation would be intellect. I am the one with a beautiful intellect. I am the one with a beautiful understanding. He means this, the understanding of the essence of everything. So this is the next step that we will discuss, again by coming back to this part of the mantra in our next section. Any questions or any observations that you would like to share with everybody, or your own thought on how this makes sense to us, and something that I struggle very much, and I think we should all struggle in that, is to find practical applications of these beautiful teachings. These teachings are deeply inspiring. They bring us into a very positive state of mind. The more we meditate on them, the more positive state of our mind becomes. But how to practically apply that, how to live these teachings in our daily life, that is a challenge which each one of us should face, and we have to sort of, how should I say, collect our intelligence, and what's the word, when we all put together our mind? Collate. Yeah. When we collate our mental capacities to find an answer, as to how, in practical terms, these things should be applied, can be applied. Even if we are just thinking in idealistic terms, then we can start taking small baby steps towards that ideal, but at least an idealistic understanding of how they should be applied into our life. Otherwise, that famous story of which also comes in the Mahabharata, Rahu and Ketu, a demon who is divided into two, because he was immortal, he acquired immortality, but his head was severed, so he was divided into two, on lower part and the upper part. Vinoba Bhave, Mahatma Gandhi's spiritual successor, used to say that we have created a society which is like Rahu and Ketu, which means either there are deeply intellectual people who know everything, but they don't live it, they don't bring it into practice, and those who work hard, they don't have an understanding. So they work hard without understanding. And those who have an understanding, they don't introduce it into their work. So this severance, can we use, or severing, can we use that word, severing of the head? Sorry? Cutting.
Yeah, severing is like you feel.
No, I wanted the word severing. Severing, which means cutting these two. That's the demonic nature, Action uninformed by wisdom will lead to destruction, and wisdom without practice leads to pride, arrogance, which then again leads to destruction. So both of them are demonic in nature. It is only when both are combined, when again both heads, the head and the torso, is combined, complete. And this is something that we have to challenge ourselves to do again and again when we come across such beautiful teachings. They have to be, okay, we have understood it in our head. Now the head has to be connected to the torso, to the heart, to our hands. I think that is the idea when we say my hand pressed close to my heart and my head, all these three faculties combined have to be applied. The 3H, yes, head, heart and hand.
Personally, I found this, what to say, about knowledge very useful for me, because when I feel about knowledge, I'm also very scared about it, because it's so vast.
It's so vast, like an ocean.
You have the feeling that you will never end
No,
learning.
no.
So the concept of the knowledge being in the essence,
Yeah.
by learning
Yeah,
the raw clay, then you know all the pottery.
exactly.
It's something that is very useful.
Yeah.
And also something that comes to my mind is that there is a story, and I don't know exactly, I think it's from a Zen master, I don't know
Mhm.
exactly where it comes from, but some kind of, maybe not, maybe it's from a I don't know, but some kind of, someone who is looking for enlightenment goes to a master, and he has studied a lot, and he has learned a lot, and he comes to the master and asking for enlightenment, of course. And then the master says, can I offer you a cup of tea? And then he just has the cup there, and then the master keeps on pouring the tea in the cup until the tea overflows.
Overflows,
And
yes.
then the master tells him that, no, I just cannot cannot give you enlightenment because your cup is so full.
So full.
That you first have
Beautiful.
to empty your cup.
Yes, first you have to empty your cup.
Because knowledge is
Beautiful.
also an obstacle sometimes.
Beautiful, beautiful, yes, yes. That is in fact what we will be going to discuss in the last step in Triśaṅku, because this was the step of intelligence, intellect, understanding. But then the last step is in fact detachment from knowledge. Even detachment from knowledge. Because without that, again, the same thing as you mentioned. And we will discuss this in our beautiful, and thanks. That first of all sounds very much Japanese with the tea, you know. And it is certainly, it cannot be anything else than a Zen story. Because these Zen koan and these tiny little Zen stories, I think they are the most beautiful things that are there in the spiritual literature. Really beautiful, just small little things. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this beautiful story. Did everybody hear it?
Yeah.
Was it clear? Yeah. The overflowing cup. Beautiful. Yeah. That's the problem. There was a very famous musician. Osho used to quote this story very much, and he was like Mozart and these very famous musicians. And the moment somebody used to come and he used to say that I want to learn from you, he would ask him, have you already studied music till now or not? If he would say, no, I have not studied music till now, okay, then say 100 pounds per hour or whatever, just to give an example. If the student would say, yes, I have studied music for many years, then he would say, okay, 400 pounds for every hour. I said, what? Somebody who has not studied music at all, you are asking 100 pounds from him, and from me, who has studied music for years, you are asking 400 pounds. This is wrong. Then he said, because you don't know how much I will have to work on you so that you forget everything that you have learned till now, so that you can learn music, actually. So I think the same idea.
That was
Swaminatha Brahmananji was like this, yes. Nada Yogi, yes. More than learning, it was all about unlearning with him.
And
Yes.
he was a musician of a king in
in Karnataka.
And then when that king died, he came here to Rishikesh, to Swami Shivananda, and because he wanted to go into Ganga. Because and then Swami Shivananda gave him sannyasa. And he said, you don't do anything, you just practice your music. And it was amazing. And it's been, I think maybe 20 years since he left his project.
Yeah, I think it was 91 or 93.
And,
Either 91 or
he
93.
was a Drupad. He was a Drupad singer. Now in these days you don't hear Drupad singers, not at all. And then he was a great tabla player also. When he played tabla, it was like blitz and thunder came down to the earth. It was amazing. You can't hear anymore like this. And of course he was practicing maybe 18 hours a day, sometimes taking no food. And he was teaching only students who were, really not pure vegetarian and
Or following all the different rules and regulations, who had dedicated their lives to it completely.
I had little time when he was very old to sit with him.
98, 99.
Yeah, also maybe at that time. And he was not teaching me anything except 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the dals.
The
and
rhythm.
So strict and all of them saying, forget everything. And like this, really amazing. So I used to go.
Once he showed me the collection of all his photos, with the presidents of all the different countries, the president of the United States, and everything.
The jacket from President Kennedy.
Yeah.
A winter jacket. And then also he had that dust from the moon, when his first come out. It was really amazing. And then he was playing tabla and doing kumbhaka for a long time, and they did a lot of research. And also that is what they did. They put special mics here
on the different chakras on the body.
And you could listen sound. Wow.
That's.
So like it was an amazing.
Certainly, he could move his muscles.
He was, completely rhythm.
Completely in a perfect rhythm. Just he had perfected rhythm to the most possible.
In all the dals,
In rhythms,
dals.
Swami Nada Brahmananji Maharaj.
Maybe Guruji might have known him. Maybe.
Nada Brahmananda.
And all these, these old musicians like Ravi Shankar, then that Drupad singer.
Dagar, Mr. Dagar.
At that time they were young, so they used to come and
Zakir Hussain used to come.
To bow down at his feet, and they were all really respecting him. It was really, I think he was the only existing Nada yogi.
And Veena Maharaj, number 2.
Veena Maharaj, yes.
There is even one.
He was also with Swaminatha.
He was also with Swami Nada Brahmananji Maharaj. Yeah. But Nada Brahmananji was more on tabla and in rhythm, and Veena Maharaj was more on his veena.
And
he was more in Badrinath. There is even one on YouTube now. I just recently saw a movie, black and white, made in the 50s or 40s by some Western journalist. And it's a beautiful recording of Veena Maharaj playing his veena. Beautiful, very beautiful.
So that was the time,
Yeah.
For 40 years back.
And can you believe he would have lived 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers above Rishikesh all his life, mostly never coming down, just playing his veena, just for his own bliss, or at best for those very rare few pilgrims who used to walk 300 kilometers on foot during their life, telling back and their family that we are going to Badrinath. If we come back, fine. If we don't, then don't wait for us. That's how
because
people
at that
used to
time
go to
it was
Badrinath.
So difficult to go to Badrinath. You never knew, they never knew.
You could fall into a glacier, anything could
So
happen.
that was the pilgrimage.
Yeah,
not
that
like
was the
these
pilgrimage,
days.
not like this in these
So
days.
they used to make all the, how do you say,
All the arrangements and
in
everything.
case they wouldn't come back. Because you had to go on foot, you know. And then the pilgrim path was on that side.
On the other
Not
side
on
of
this
this,
side.
no, on the
So,
other
and
side.
we went once, but
For
we
some-
couldn't completely, he was 4 years old, so we took that path.
For a while.
But we couldn't reach completely.
No, we
because
came
that
back.
path was not anymore existing.
And it was getting
So we
too
had to
cold,
go
it was
and
November,
we had to
December,
go back.
so we had to come back.
It was just maybe just 4
4 and a half, 5. Yeah.
No food, days together, no food. There was nothing.
Even finding water used to be
was
a challenge.
You know, and then sometimes we didn't know, are we on the right path? Then
Yeah.
maybe you meet one person in a day, you know, asking, are we right or where we have to go? And then, okay, yes, go this side. And then, okay, maybe next day, somebody came, no, you have to go this side. You know, and like this, you know, really, 2 days sometimes no food, nothing,
Yes,
cold,
yes.
not enough blanket, nothing to cover the body.
In this country, anyway, people are very good at telling you the direction. You know, they do a wonderful job. So you really reach your destination at the earliest. Even in Delhi, everywhere, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. If you ask direction, everybody is going to tell you the direction. Nobody is going to say, I don't know. Everybody. Even, here. Can we? Okay, so let us conclude with the prayer for universal well-being. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः विश्वशान्तिः